Pastor Kevin Scott, could you lead us in prayer today?
Yes. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the protection you provided through our military, our naval, and the air wing that we enjoy on this island. I thank you for the opportunity for the council members to meet tonight for the Oak Harbor Council meeting. I pray, Lord, that all decisions will be made with the people's best interest in mind, and I pray that all the decisions made will be done by your leading and in righteousness, and I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
What we're doing. All right. Facebook and broadcast following the meeting on cable channel 10 HD 1090. Attendees are guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. We do not need to take roll as we are now going, our first item this evening is an executive session. At this time, the council will move into executive session to 110(1)G. The anticipated duration of the executive session is 15 minutes. Action may or may not be taken upon return to the open session. Executive sessions are not open to the public. All right, the council has come out of executive session and we are back in open session. We're not will be addressed later on the agenda in one of David Goldman's items. So we will move on to approval of agenda. Are there any suggested changes? If there are none, note the agenda is approved as presented. Hearing none, the agenda is approved, and we move on. Thank you very much. Presentations. We have a community presentation today from Whidbey Island Marathon. Fizz Events, Mr. Jared Loranger. Maybe?
I didn't know yesterday. Please think of it. That's right. So anyway, that's for you to.
Okay, so we are waiting for our presenter on the presentation. I promise I will not sing karaoke or anything, but we will be waiting to have the presenter conferenced in.
No, I don't see him on there, and I know she was trying to. Do you not see him?
Yeah, I see his name. Hold on, let me just get Wendy.
I'm trying to message him and see. Yeah. Well, there's some. Yeah, we can postpone it. Let's postpone it. Mikhail's going to try to work with him on it and see if we can get there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. David.
So Mikhail is going to try to work with Mr. Loranger and see if she can get him on
Okay.
Later in the meeting. There's just some internet traffic issues that are happening today that she's trying to adjust with.
Got it. So we're going to continue to wait for a couple minutes.
No, we can try him later in the meeting.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we're going to move on to citizen comment period. Oh, is the feed okay online is what?
Our meeting streaming, fine.
I would need to check, so give me a second to check that. But the problem is more the connection in the room and people trying to feed in through Ring Central. And we're not sure if it's a Ring Central issue or something else.
This is Hillary. I'm getting it loud and clear. No glitches.
Okay.
Thank you, Hillary. So I will just move on with citizen comment period then. All right, citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment, or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. We received several new public comments since our last regular meeting. They are displayed here. That's okay. Comment on public hearing items will be taken when those hearings are opened. Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak to items not listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we've had two people who signed up to speak. The first is Tiffany Scribner.
Okay.
Thank you, Commission, or Councilors, excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I stand here today to express my profound disappointment in the recent actions and inactions of this body. Last week, Council met to move forward with a report and order for the Salary Commission. What ensued was frankly a circus. Council spent the majority of what ended up as a 6+ hour meeting that has been continued today devoted to three things: concerns of transparency of information, concerns on the ethics of a clearly defined and knowable process, and optics. The first concern, one of transparency, is one that I and the laws of our state take very seriously. It was surprising and concerning to me that the council was not aware of meetings and had not been provided the full opportunity to review all the documents and information pertinent to the issue at hand. It is one that I addressed directly with city staff both during that meeting and in the days following, and it is my belief that the documents that you need are now available to you. However, when we come to the second concern, the ethics of a clearly defined process, I take issue. It appeared as if most everyone on council was hearing about the report and order for the very first time in last week's meeting, in spite of the fact that packets were presented with information to council and the Salary Commission's agendas and meeting dates were available. Indeed, so many concerns were raised during that meeting, but not a single council person had contacted me prior to that meeting to gain clarity. It appears as if some of the council does not understand what the commissions are charged and chartered to do, nor how they are asked to do it. Additionally, there was a robust conversation as to the ethics of selected each commissioner after citizens submit their applications to the city, which are often asked for by council members and indeed the mayor. And then you, council members, are required to confirm each and every one of the people appointed. Why is it only after the Salary Commission made a decision that you did not agree with that those appointments were called into question? And if you believe that any affiliation, any brotherly affection between our community members and our elected officials calls into question the ethics of work done on commissions and in our city, I say to you, look around. Is there a person in this room that you have not had coffee with, sat in a bar and had a drink with, shared a meal with? Indeed, I have many of you in my cell phone, and I've had drinks. If you look to friendship and you see strings used to manipulate outcomes, that says more about what you think about community than it says about any member of the Salary Commission. Decisions were delayed, issues were ignored, and the needs of our city were pushed aside in favor of railing against a clearly defined and easily knowable process. It feels as if the council was elected to do a job, and right now they're not doing it. Lastly, optics were discussed over and over again. I ask you, council, is it your job to worry about? It appears that some of you spend more of your time worrying about what your neighbor or those on social media think, or indeed what our own newspaper might think, a newspaper that one of council admitted was more fuss and fluster than fact. Newspaper thinks, rather than facts and what the work of running this city with the power we as a community have vested in you is supposed to look like. Are the optics of badgering community volunteers better? No less than 3 people have approached me this week unsolicited and told me that they will never volunteer for our city. And they don't understand why I haven't resigned. We deserve a council that listens to its constituents, acts with knowledge, wisdom, urgency, and foresight, and puts the needs of the city above all else. We deserve a council that understands that leadership is not about holding office, the emperor's new clothes, but instead about taking responsibility and making a difference. And while I appreciate greatly the time that each and every one of you spend, you must also appreciate the time that our volunteers spend and the efforts that are put forth when they are doing the job that has been put before them when they raise their hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scribner. Yes, Julie.
Next on the list is Mary Elizabeth Himes.
Hello, Council. So Commissioner Scribner had much to say, and I just want to sum a little bit of what she said. Facts are not feelings. So we'll start there. I'm here to talk about the opportunities for the council for process improvement. There are 12 advisory boards within the city of Oak Harbor, all volunteer commissions. There are opportunities for each council member to pick up 2 of those boards and become familiar with the process, procedures, and authorities so that you don't have egg on your face, glitches, or be blindsided when processes come about in front of you and you didn't know that they were going to happen. You might also want to make sure that, just like all of the constituents in this city are told to check the website so that they can see what is going to be on the council meeting, what commissions are having meetings, and what those agendas might be. That might be helpful also for the council to do as well as they serve the community. Another opportunity is for the council to increase the level of efficiency within the meetings by eliminating wasted time on emoting and emoting mute points. Thirdly, take the opportunity that you've been given as council and give the respect to the community to focus on the solutions that are available, not the problem. The amount of time spent last week, this week, on a point that you cannot do anything about except to, 1, demolish or get rid of the salary commission if you don't agree with them, collectively come together in some type of workshop or retreat and create some type of systems and processes that will help you do a better job doing your job, helping the community have more trust in you instead of finding out information or emotions on Facebook. I will agree with Commissioner Scribner that a council should be better than Facebook. The expectation that an elementary school process is being handled, I'm saying the elementary school process because pretty much 12-year-old work on Facebook. Collecting versus the opportunity to create a positive process. Go on Facebook and say, we have created a process. We will be having a meeting. We will create the process, and the process will be A, B, C. You will be notified. Solutions over problems. We all have problems, but putting Oak Harbor on the map as Clown City for playing in Facebook is embarrassing. This city is not shrinking, it is growing. You have 5,500 homes or units to be built in this city. You 2 times that with 2 people in the house, that's 11,000 potentially more citizens. Oak Harbor cannot continue to be a little big city. Step up your game.
Thank you, Commissioner Hines. Anybody else? Julie?
No one else has signed up, Mayor.
Okay. So is there anyone here with us this evening that has not signed up that would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? All right. Hearing no one else who wishes to speak at this time, we'll close public comment, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the list and consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Given that we have not had the presentation from the Whidbey Island Marathon, I would move to remove item B for the time being.
All right, so we are going to remove item B from the consent agenda. Can I get a motion? Huh?
Second.
Oh, sorry, okay, so motion presented by Councilmember Marshall, seconded by Councilmember Wiesner. And all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, that passes unanimously. And then are we just going to pull that item from the agenda altogether, Julie?
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but he thinks he can now hear us and present, so
Okay.
Jared thinks he's available now.
Prior to that, Mayor, if we would approve the remaining consent agenda items?
So could we approve now the remaining consent agenda items, which is the marathon?
Move to approve the remaining consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items by Councilmember Marshall, seconded by Councilmember Hoffmeyer. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Volume up a little more as well.
Very good, thank you.
First off, sorry about that. It looks like I had some speaker issues here on my end, or maybe on that end, but I am here now. So my name's Jared Loranger. I'm the race director for the Whidbey Island Marathon. I think I've met a good handful of you, some I haven't, but I'm here just to present on a quick recap of the Whidbey Island Marathon from this last April. So I put together a slideshow here that kind of just talks about facts and kind of the key points of what we were able to accomplish at the marathon this year. So without further ado, we'll go to the next slide here. This year's race took place on April 21st. We had awesome weather for the second year in a row, which is a blessing. There's been many years where it's been raining sideways, and we've lost about 20% of the participants that just didn't want to run. But this year we had fantastic turnout. The bottom left corner there, it looks like I didn't update the 2023 numbers. Those numbers are correct for 2024. I just didn't put 2024 there. So this year we had 1,674 total participants. The one cool thing is we usually average right about 215 marathoners. This year those numbers jumped all the way up to 285, with a lot of people either returning or taking on our course for the first time. After the race, I heard lots of comments of people were really excited about the coverage we had on the course, the spectators that were out on the course, the nice representation from different community groups at the water stations, and overall just really liked the course, even though it is very hilly on the island. I'm sure some of you have participated in the 5K or 10K half or full, and it's obviously very hilly, and a lot of participants have a good time coming out and seeing how they can do on those hills. Quick breakdown there on the numbers. They're pretty similar to where we have been in the past. The cool thing is that upper right-hand corner, the geographic locations of where people are coming from, about 37% are on Whidbey Island. We get another 45% people traveling from off the island over 50 miles away, which is an awesome statistic. Not a lot of races can say they get about 45% of their participants coming from 50 miles away to participate, which is really cool to see. Fun facts down below there. Average age is 36. We had 746 participants come from that 50 miles or further away, showing this is a destination race that people do want to come and spend time in Oak Harbor and on the island to not only participate in the event, but kind of check out the island. And it's a good excuse to come to something that maybe they didn't have a reason to before. 32 states were represented this year, 7 countries, which is actually the most amount of countries I've seen represented in about the 10 years I've been working on this race. And our Canadian participation was actually up. We had almost 60 participants. Typically that number's anywhere from 15 to 25. We more than doubled that number, so it's showing people are coming from our neighboring country there to the north in Canada. They're coming down. And one cool fact, we had over 250 room night stays across Oak Harbor, and that's generated by us asking everybody as they register if they will be staying 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, if they're staying in hotels or Airbnbs. So we're able to collect all that data and see that not only are people coming from 50 miles away, they're also staying the night, which leads to to obviously hotel room night stays. It leads to people eating out in the restaurants, buying gas, going to the grocery store. So bringing in some economic income to the island that otherwise really cool to see. And that obviously doesn't account for how many of those people that are staying over the night bring their family members or friends or people who aren't running to come hang out and watch the race and then participate in all the other activities they do on the island during the weekend there. Next slide. This is just showing some of our marketing efforts from this past year. That picture in the right-hand corner shows what our design was. So this was our logo for this year that shows the middle there was the medal that everybody got, and it actually changed. So if you ran the marathon, it said marathon. Half, obviously half, 10K and 5K. So everybody got a unique medal, which was cool. And then we did different shirts for each race as well. So marathoners got a little cooler shirt, which was a full hoodie design that people could run in the winter months in. We gave away long sleeve shirts for the half marathoners, and then short sleeve shirts for those shorter distance races, as well as to the volunteers. And then we kind of used that same look and feel to design our bib, so everybody had kind of a cool little bit of all three were the same design that they got that they can hang on their wall or bring home. And obviously those shirts people run in throughout the year and just showcase our race and do some free marketing and branding for us. Over on the left side there, it just shows kind of where we went to put our marketing efforts. Obviously, we do a lot of Facebook promotion to the general public. We do some boosted ads too that pinpoint those runners and people that like to travel for races, different things like that. We sent out over 10 promotional emails to a database of over 50,000 people, which includes other races I produced throughout the Northwest, as well as past Whidbey Island participants and other races, obviously, that I work on. Knowing these are runners that, we get a good open rate of 15 to 20% as well, and we see probably a 3% click-through rate, which is usually a little higher than what we normally see on other races of shorter distance. Some print publications that we go to. Some of the ones that are a little more runner focused are Race Center Northwest, which is most of the Northwest from Bend, Oregon, all the way up to us. Adventures Northwest is focused a little more in the Bellingham area that hits a little bit of Canada all the way down to Seattle. And then Run Guides actually focus on the state of Washington itself as well as the Northwest. So trying to pinpoint those runners that can travel, but travel by vehicle to get here, knowing it's a pretty easy destination to get to by vehicle. And then obviously the one we always focus on is the Whidbey Weekly, that we try and make sure we get ads going all the way from January through. So people who are looking at that weekly ad will see our ad every week, and hopefully that reminds them and gets it top of mind when they're thinking about what's their next athletic goals. Hopefully it's the Whidbey Island Marathon. The shot was that bottom left-hand corner. We actually wrapped the back of one of the Whidbey shuttles, and it's one of the ones that go to and from the airport multiple times a week. This we got a really good deal on it. We basically only had to pay for the actual wrap of it, so we actually got the advertising portion free from one of our partners there at Whidbey SeaTac Shuttle. They also do a lot of our shuttling to and from the race start to the hotels, back from the hotels. So they've been a great partner, and this was something that they've been doing advertising wise, and we free on their. Obviously, it's a little harder to track how that did, but it's another unique way to get eyes on the marathon and on Oak Harbor itself. Next slide, I think, talks about all the volunteers we had. Yeah, so this kind of talks through just our weekend as a whole. We have, as you can see, over about 250 volunteers that come and participate at the marathon without running. This race wouldn't be possible without those volunteers coming to lend a hand at the packet pickup event that we do the day before, or at the start line of the marathon. We get people who are getting up at 4 a.m. just like my crew does. They get on the shuttle, and they're the first ones out there to help make sure those runners have all the supplies they need prior to their race. And they're there rain or shine, which is awesome. We get another 50 volunteers at the start line, which is there at Windjammer Park, that help pass out the medals to the finishers. You can see them passing out the water in the bottom corner there. They're handing out race packets and shirts. They're taking care of your gear while you're running. So we get a lot of volunteers that come out and want to support the race. 25 plus course monitors are out there helping direct those runners where to go, where to turn, making sure they're safe when they're crossing through intersections and roadways, and making sure they stay on the right course and have some sort of support out there and some of those lonely miles when we're out in the country. And then lastly, we have over 150 volunteers every year at the 18 different water stations that are scattered throughout from Deception Pass all the way down to our South Point on the half marathon course. Anywhere from 5 volunteers all the way up to 20 volunteers sometimes at these. And those volunteers range from different groups in the community, like the Kiwanis clubs that you can see listed. A lot of volunteers from the high school, as well as multiple different Navy commands come out and support this. We get Oak Harbor Senior Center, Navy Federal Credit Union, a lot of different businesses and volunteer groups and different groups that just come out and participate in this every year. And this event wouldn't be possible if we don't get those volunteers. So I can't thank those volunteers enough to come out. I know a good amount of them cheer on the runners or pass out water at the finish line and participate. So thank you to everybody that does help. Thank you to the city, obviously, and thank you to the businesses that have lent a hand in the past and at this event. 2024 and beyond. So some things that we changed this year are things that we are looking to improve for next year. One thing we did this year, we added additional checkpoints for loved ones to track their runners. So if you're running the marathon and you have a couple people waiting at the finish line, you can now look at your phone and see every 3 miles or 5 miles where your runner is specifically. So you could either drive to those next points, or you can follow them along to make sure you're waiting at the finish line with those cheer signs and other things that are waiting for those runners. So something pretty cool that makes it a little more engaging for those spectators, and a good reason to sign up for a race, knowing you can send this out to me sitting in Seattle and I can check your progress and send you, quick emojis or words of encouragement as a text to you. Trying to continue adding to the finish line experience with live music. We had a couple food trucks there this year. We've got a great band that plays every year from the island. Just trying to add elements to help you celebrate your success. So when you finish, we don't want to see you just leave. We want to see you stick around and cheer on those other runners. And if we can add some food at the finish line besides what Hagen offers, with either tacos or mini donuts or coffee, stuff like that is a great way to keep those spectators sticking around too and cheering on their loved ones or waiting for their kids to do the Kids Dash. 2025, we're looking to expand exhibitor booths at the finish line. When COVID hit, a lot of businesses changed how they were marketing to people. And one of those things that kind of went away was the in-person communication at a booth, sitting there talking to people to try and either pass out coupons or convince you to come to their business. They switched to a lot of online, and a lot of them have not come back to the running industry to promote physically at the event. But there are some that are coming back, and I know there's some other businesses from Oak Harbor and on the island that are wanting to come. So talking to them, trying to get those folks out is my goal for next year. Same for the pre-race packet pickup. Figure out more giveaways we can do. Figure out how to get more booths there, information booths, different things like that. Whidbey Weekly has been an awesome partner. They come in and they actually pass out their weekly newspaper that has a lot of discounts in it, which is super cool for those runners who are from off island. They're able to talk, look at the course maps, figure out a good place to go eat dinner, and other fun things to do while they're there for the next day or two. And Whidbey Weekly has been awesome about kind of running that booth. So I want to expand on that and see if we can find a few more community partners that want to come out and either do the same thing, promote where they're at, or just help educate people on Oak Harbor and what there is to do here in Deception Pass and other locations. 2025, I want to also expand on that checkpoints for you to know where a person is. I want to provide mile-by-mile splits for all those runners of the marathon and half marathon to let them see their progress, see how they're doing, see if they're on pace for what they want to be, but also make it available for all the loved ones so you can know mile by mile where your person is and how they're doing. This race is one of my favorite out of the 2025 I produce every year. I love it. It's a very cool scenic race that's unique and has such a cool community feel to it, while offering people a really challenging course that they can go back and really feel like they accomplished something. So with the help of the city as a whole, it's been an awesome experience again in 2024 to produce this. My goal this next year, along with those others, is to hopefully continue our conversation with the military and see how we can possibly move part of the route onto the military naval base like we were in, I think it's been since about 2017 when we were able to do that, but it would help flatten out some of the course. It would add a lot more scenery to what is already one of the most scenic courses I know there is in the Northwest, and hopefully flattening out parts of that route will also add more participants to the race and help grow this even more. I don't know where they're going to stay. I think we're about 96, 98% hotel sales rate is all booked for that weekend. So, but there's plenty of other places to go on the island. We can go to Anacortes. I know we're working on LTAC grants in all across Island County and in Anacortes and Burlington. So hopefully with those goals, we'll be able to bring more people next year. I don't think I have another slide. I think there's just an in slide that's basically it says the same thing I have. Thank you for everything, all the support that the city's given me and given this race. And my goal is just to continue to make it grow year after year. So thank you for letting me present, and I look forward to next year's race. Anything needed.
Great. Thank you for your presentation, Jared. So just council quickly, I would like to entertain a motion to add back or approve item B. Sure, go ahead. Yes, absolutely. Councilmember Stuckey.
Well, I just had a comment. I wanted to thank you, genuinely. I don't think I had run in 15 years. And when I say run, I mean jog out a mile. I did sign up for this marathon. And I don't like backing down from a dare. Made it. I mean, it's only 5K, but, you know, it's been a while. And I have been running consistently multiple times a week ever since. So you kind of gave me the bug, and I will definitely be signing up next year. So thank you for helping make a healthier me.
I love it. Well, thank you. I will tell you, you're not the only one. I ran my first marathon on a dare. So it's a good way to get yourself out there and run.
Thanks, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Jared, you do a great job with that expo. How did that go this year? And then just as next year's marathon, rather, is April 28th. And that's traditionally been the same weekend. Chamber's going to call it this next year.
Correct.
Is that going to be a conflict, and how is that going to affect with both events that same weekend? And so I'm wondering if there's moving it up a week, might be more beneficial.
We talked with Sabrina and Mikhail, and actually Holland Happenings moving back a week, or moving into May by 1 weekend this next year.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're going to go to May 3rd, 4th. So we moved to 27th just for next year because Easter falls on the 20th. So if Holland Happening moves back in, let's say, 2026, we'll obviously go 1 weekend before them. So my goal, and I don't think the city wants to ever be on the same weekend with those two events. Right. Obviously, they're both big draws for the city. So our goal is not to be on the same before Holland Happening. So if they choose to move back to April in 2026, we'll shift as well. Easter's always the hard one because it kind of juggles around in April. So obviously our goal at first when we were talking with the city was we would have been on the 13th of April instead of the 20th, but because Holland Happening moved back, we'll move with them. It actually those 2 weeks, you wouldn't believe, wind in the 13th, and on the 27th it could be what looks to be a whole different place, which is great for setup and participation. So obviously, long story short, we'll make sure we always stay a week before Holland Happening is our goal. As for the booths, we had maybe one or two this year at that pre-race expo packet pickup. Again, it's hard. 6 hours come out, which was awesome to see. We've got our Pacers that come out, but like I said, my goal is to figure out a running store or something along those lines to come out and do it. And I got no's from a store in Burlington, 2 stores in Bellingham, and the store I work with here in Seattle quite a bit, that they just sell so much more stuff online or in the store than they do on site, that it's hard for them to make any money. So my goal is to hopefully figure out how we can get some of our partners that either donate product or are already going to be there on Sunday to show up on Saturday as well. And I don't know if that means maybe we try and do a Saturday market or something there in that same area and promote it as, two events where we've got different vegetables and different foods and stuff like that are a little more craft and makers market type things. We tried it a couple years ago. I think I need to find a different partner that can help run that. But my goal would be to do something like that, where you can also buy, if you're waiting at the finish line, you can buy flowers for the person you're waiting for, or cool gifts like that. So that's the way I think it would really be cool and show community, I guess, versus trying to bring in a bank or bring in the grocery store or bring in a booth like that. Obviously, we'll never turn those businesses away, but if I can figure out a way that's unique and we've got something that maybe brings the general public down there too, that's my goal. But I'm continuing to work on that and see how I can continue to grow that again. It's not, I guess, an issue that it's not an issue specific for this race. It's been the same thing since 2021, I think, when we started doing races again, that a lot of those exhibitors, they don't come out to some of the other races I do in Seattle either, or some of the charity runs we do here in the area as well. So it's definitely something I've seen that's been harder to accomplish across the board, not just this one. But my goal, like I said, is continue to work on that and give those runners more things to do and more things to look at.
All right, thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, as all, very professional presentation, very professional event. I remember sitting in this building, and this is going back a while, probably 13, 14 years ago, I think. I was probably sitting with Martha. Hi, nice to see you. Councilor Heisen would remember, there was times where this event was bleeding quite a bit of money. It even became, 12, 13 years ago, it even became some type of political football, a campaign issue. I think it ended up, the Elks Club might have even ran it for a couple years. And even though the event has always went off pretty well. But what I just can't commend you enough on is your promotion of this event throughout the year, the growth that we have seen in it, and that you're able to track that. Hey, there was people from 7 different countries, for instance. Pretty wild. So just major kudos. Keep it up. Love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for the good of the order on this matter? Hearing nothing, like I said before, I will entertain a motion to add back or approve item B, professional services agreement, Fizz events for Whidbey Island Marathon. Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the professional services agreement, Fizz events for the Whidbey Island Marathon.
Second.
We have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Any further discussion on this before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Jared.
Thank you very much, Jared, for your presentation.
Of course, thank you for having me.
All right, we are moving on to mayor's comments. I will apologize up front. I have a lot to say, as you all did last week, so bear with me. I appreciate everyone waiting for me to return from my time out of the office to address my response to items from last week's meeting. We all need breaks to reflect and return with a fresh perspective. The city administrator was away at a conference to connect with other city managers and administrators last week. The Washington City Managers and Administrators Association is an important group that I appreciate us participating in. City Administrator Combs will share more about the conference and the department report at the workshop later this month. Sometimes timing does not align perfectly with the schedules and the business we have as a city. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Heisen and Deputy City Administrator David Goldman for being here to run the meeting in our absences. And it was a very long and painful process, and watching the video back. In listening to the video of the meeting, I am thankful that this council is aware of the amount of work I am putting into being the mayor of this city every day. It is more than a 40-hour-a-week job to be present and to lead our growing city. I am constantly learning new things as your mayor, and I love it. I also want to thank our staff and volunteers. They put in the hours and make the city shine. They are helping us address cleaning up items from the past, working on current projects, and planning for our future. We should do all we can to show our appreciation of their service to making the city of Oak Harbor a wonderful place to live, work, and visit. In reflection, I realized that I could have communicated the process with the Salary Commission better. I will work to do this differently in the future. We are all learning. Part of my learning was focusing on following the process from the past and keeping the Salary Commission and Council separate, because the Salary Commission is an independent commission appointed by the mayor following approval by the council. Thank you to those council members who took the time to share their feelings about the Salary Commission and my salary increase process with me. Mayor Pro Tem Heisen, Councilmember Wiesner, Councilmember Wiggenstein, Councilmember Arms, Councilmember Stuckey, Councilmember Marshall. Each and every one of you reached out to me and we had individual conversations on this process. I appreciate your candor, your professionalism, and your motivation and attitude to work with me in moving forward. A good leader doesn't need to agree with everyone, but they take the time to listen and understand the perspective of others. I have learned that we can all do better. All of us need to do a better job of understanding how all our boards, commissions, and committees, city code, state laws, policies, and processes work. We can also do better at addressing our disagreements. If we don't agree with something, we need to discuss potential changes as an elected body. I will not support any of us as community leaders using social media platforms to disagree with this council and our decisions, attack staff, or our community volunteers. In fact, I think some of you owe our staff and volunteers an apology. The buck stops with me as the mayor, and if you have a problem, come what this city is doing. This is an ongoing item that our communications officer is working with, and talented communicator. We must let her do her job and notify her of items of concern and not participate in. Our participation in these ongoing discussions creates risk for us individually and for the city to be the communication head of the city. I urge you to let the communications officer do her job. Public record. And many of you on this council body are using personal cell phones and which I don't understand why, because we're paying for city cell phones and you all have services. Communications Officer Aguilar has met with a few of you already. I invite you to schedule a time to meet with her to discuss digital platforms and engagement practices so we're all aligned in our approach with intentional dialogue to our community. It is embarrassing when I see posts that the community and staff share with me about council members bullying and threatening. It impacts the types of interactions that the community members have with staff. Why would we want to make any of their jobs harder? It increases workload and stress for staff and volunteers. Can be viewed as acceptance of the statements. Be aware of how your online interactions impact our staff and volunteers. It is a challenge, and sometimes you should just put the keyboard down. We can all help by doing a better job of staying informed. Call or sign up for announcements via the Notify Me button on the website so that you will receive messages about upcoming events. Website directly. If you need assistance, please contact the executive office staff. Another option is to do as Mayor Pro Tem and Council Members Arms, Marshall, and Stuckey do. They schedule time before meetings with the city administrator or myself to discuss items on the agenda. I met with council members yesterday. I think we forgot a name there. with me on an ongoing basis going forward. It provides an opportunity to ask questions, request additional information, or make staff aware of comments you have received from the public so they can find ways to potentially incorporate a response into their presentations. Finally, this is a strong mayor city. I am the executive branch, and you are the legislative branch. It is the beauty of our democracy because we have a system of checks and balances. We are entrusted with maintaining our democracy, and one way we can do this is by understanding our roles and sticking to them. Some items address a decision. Create great communities by working together. There will be times that we disagree. However, I want us to take the time to talk and settle disagreements in person versus on social media. If you think my schedule is booked, call Executive Services Coordinator Mikhail Finkel, and she will work with me to get you added to my calendar. Staff reminded me this week about Resolution 2220. That included adoption of council and staff guidelines. I am putting these guidelines up on the screen because it is a good reminder for all of us. I'm asking Mikhail to pause for us all 7 items that include appreciation of roles and responsibilities, partnership and teamwork, no surprises, tolerate imperfection, and setbacks. Set clear priorities, information and options, communication and engagement, and addressing concerns. Let's work together to continue to stay on this path. I want to thank all our staff and interested in serving this community. Please fill out an application to serve on one of our advisory board vacancies that are on the screen now. Am I going too fast for Mikhail? Oh, sorry, I'll slow down.
My apologies for not using the mic.
All right, I am confident that together we can make a positive difference. I want to again say thank you to staff and apologize for what you've endured this week at the front counter with people coming in as a result of things that have been posted online and social media. We've worked through these. They're doing a fabulous job in being professional like they always are. At this time, I would like to recognize Interim Fire Chief, Chief Gordy. Gordy, thank you for your thoughtful and professional service to our fire department and our city. We have been so fortunate to benefit from your knowledge and experience. From meeting with and assessing the needs of department staff to assisting in coordination with the next steps for our new fire station. Sorry, I lost my place. Give me a second. Assisting coordination, okay. To providing input and guidance in the selection of our new chief. You have gone above and beyond in our role as interim fire chief, and please accept this small token of our gratitude. I have a plaque to present to you. Next on the list is the Comprehensive Plan Survey. The city's Development Services team launched our 2025 Comprehensive Plan Survey today. We ask the public to please take time to take the survey. Your survey responses will allow our team to plan for the next 10 years by learning what's important to you and what you value in our community. The community vision and input are very important to shaping a resilient, sustainable future for Oak Harbor. You may scan the QR code to take the short survey or log on to the city website. The survey is live now and will go live on social media tomorrow morning. Advisory board and commission openings. The city has openings on several of our advisory boards and commissions. They are displayed on screen. Please see our website to apply. The city does appreciate your service. All staff event on Thursday. City staff will participate in a mandatory all-staff event on Thursday from 11 to 1 p.m. All city offices will be closed from 10:45 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. The city is still hiring and has openings for employment in several areas, including seasonal positions, evidence information specialist, bus driver, streets, and more. See our website for a complete listing. Local events. There are several terrific special events happening in our area, many of which are displayed on the screen. And then on a very personal note, I recently was joined by Chief Slowick and Captain Eric Hanks in celebrating, and she will be dearly missed as she passed away. With that, I will now call upon council for any comments that you have. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Scribner. I agree with every word that you said, and we deserved that. Commissioner Hines is as well. We 100%. Thank you. It's I'm not really sure how to phrase this, but it's difficult to reconcile when council says that, you know, employee morale is so important to us and it's such a high priority and that we value our volunteers so much, while at the same time publicly criticizing said employees or questioning the motives of volunteers. We don't get to have it both ways. So thank you for the reality check. Your work is extremely valued. It's not lost on us. You definitely don't get paid enough to deal with this. And I just want to thank you for your candor. I'm pleased that you felt like you could get up there and say the things that you said. I'm happy that discourse exists. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, all on that, right? And I appreciate you coming forward. I mean, you know, and I'll apologize if anything was taken personal out of that, right? I will stand by the optics thing, but the optics is our fault, right, for allowing the optics to happen. The optics is not on you. You followed the process, right? So understand, you know, my comments about the optics was it's not a good look for us. This is not about, that wasn't about you. So again, I apologize if any of those comments were taken wrong, and I'll certainly own the fact that we were shocked and surprised, and there was probably things stated that shouldn't have been. But I'm going to stand by the optics thing, and that's something we need to also own up here. Okay, and I will take exceptions just to a couple things, and I just want to put it out there that we did not delay taking action on anything because of this. There was two things presented. There was a budget amendment presented and a series of budget adjustments. The budget adjustments don't take any action by council whatsoever. Those were informational, and thank you for providing those, Mr. Goldman, and I would appreciate if you just keep doing that. Do your thing, right? Get us the information, even if we don't agree with it, darn it, okay? You're doing a great job, right? So the budget adjustments required no action by council, including the action for the mayor. The budget amendments, however, required action by council, and that was delayed for some conversation that we actually had earlier in the executive section. It'll help us make a decision on those budget amendments. So that's why that whole package was moved forward. There was no requirement for council to take any action on the portion of that was somewhat more controversial than the budget amendment, although we had some questions about the amendment portion of that, and that was moved forward. And certainly, I'd be happy to get offline with any members of the Salary Commission as to how us as council can help moving forward in that optic thing, right? And I get that we're separate entities, right? In fact, Councilmember Hyzon and I were around in 2018 when the Salary Commission was reconvened. It had not existed for several years. And we thought, well, from both sides, at that point in time, from both sides, both for the up and the down of it, a Salary Commission needed to be involved. And we did knowingly help separate that separation between council and the Salary Commission, because we kind of felt odd about voting on our own salary. I mean, it just felt weird. And so we'd added that provision in for council that any raise that this body takes an action on that would result in additional money for anybody sitting here does not take effect till the next election. So certainly, I think we were all surprised about some of the RCW that attached to that whole program, right? Which is not something we created. That RCW was created by the state of Washington. I think even Hillary had to do a little research to come up with that. So, again, apologies. I'll own what I said and the things that were inappropriate. I apologize for, and the things not so much, I stand by. And you're right, Mary, we can always do better. Better, as long as we're doing our best. And I can't speak for my best each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, first and foremost, Tiffany, Mary Elizabeth, Jason, Melissa, thank you so much for stepping up and serving. When I read the public deepest regrets that the four of you, a lot of what Councilmember Wiesner said with the surprises, et cetera, that's not on you guys. So, with regards to the rest of the whole situation, and I think just life in general, I think, what we resist persists. And I think what we accept dissolves. So I think I'm glad the process could have been handled better, and that there are some positive tweaks that we can make on this into the future for sure. With and administration was great, and it did feel like a two-way street. So I hear you with no surprises. I hope as a council we can get there. I know at the previous council meeting, I think almost every one of us had addressed that we wished the communications would improve, and that's a joint effort. That's something we have to do together. I think we all know that. With regards to Facebook, I'm 39 years old. I think Councilmember Stuckey's 38. He's still 38?
I think so.
Okay, he thinks he is. We've been on MySpace or Facebook since we were in middle school. But that said, Brian and myself, for instance, we are much older than a lot of the people in this community are already, and maybe they're already off of Facebook on something else. But to do this job truly well, Facebook is where a lot of our electorate is, and it has spurred, our activism on Facebook, it has really spurred so much involvement. There was a while back to where the city had, posted, I think, 9, 10, 11 different vacancies for these commissions. They'd been vacant, no application for months and months. I know myself, Councilmember Stuckey asked about those vacancies quite a few times. At a certain point, he went ahead and posted it on his Facebook page, and I shared it. And within a week, I think it was 11 positions, all 11 of them were filled instantly. There is great value there, and I don't think any of us are obligated to respond to every negative comment online. I just, this would be a 100-hour-a-week job if that were the case, and there are many people out there you can't reason with. But again, back to my initial comments. To the 4 individuals on the salary commission, in my deepest regrets that you guys were dragged into this. And thank you for your service.
Councilmember Stuckey.
So one, I want to thank Mayor. We did have a fairly robust conversation where I expressed some concerns, and I think that you are receptive and looking to make some changes in the future that might help us going forward. A lot of my issue had to do with the process. Minutes not being posted till far later, the videos not being posted till well after our meeting. But I want to be clear, none of that is on the members of the Salary Commission. Their job is certainly not to post minutes and not to share videos. And Tiffany and I talked and we had a robust conversation. I think we agree on most items that there's some things that could have been done better as far as those sort of things go, which has nothing to do with the individual members. In fact, she fought to get some of those things on. And whether or not I agree or disagree with the decision on the salary is kind of moot. You folks did your job. I'm glad you're there because I don't want to vote on my own salary, very much so. So I was surprised a little bit, and it was more to do with the process. But if I made any inference against you folks personally, I do apologize because that was not my intent. It was the process outside of you, and like I said, I agree, disagree, it really doesn't matter. You did your job, and that's how it goes. I do have one question for, is Hillary, our city attorney, on there?
I am, always listening.
I'm trying to think, always listening. I'm trying to think of solutions going forward, and I do love I mean, all our commissions are appointed by the mayor. That's how it goes, and that's how it should be, and confirmed by council. And I don't want us to vote on our own salary. But to make this a little smoother in the future, is it possible for us to amend things in the future where the salary commission dictates our salary, but we as council can vote the mayor's salary? You see what I'm saying? So those people are still appointed by him, but they're not voting on his salary. Is that possible to have that discussion in the future? Or is that just not something that can be done legally?
I've never seen a salary commission authorized to do only the council's salary, not the mayor's salary. But I can look into it.
Just a curiosity. I feel like that could be a step moving forward. I mean, I'm thinking more solutions going forward, I'm not trying to hash out the past. I'm just looking forward if that would be a possibility. It'd be interesting to see if that could happen. And if my council members want to have a discussion about that, great. And if everyone's looking at me like, no, but that's how it works. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I'll look into it. No problem.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. I'm just going to publicly share the comments that I've had with community members that have called me to ask me about this process. So what I will say is to the members of the Salary Commission, I've worked with almost all of you in one capacity or another, and I hold you guys to have the highest principles. Appreciate the work that you have done. I don't think that there's any question in my mind as to your ethics or your principles, and in reading the meeting minutes, it looked to me as if you did your due diligence. Tiffany, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you kind of my concerns in the process and some of the immediately get on that and take action and rectify that situation. So I appreciate your efforts in that. I will say we were surprised. I mean, there's no question about it. We were surprised in the fact that there was a raise, and that wasn't communicated to us until after the 30-day window had closed. I mean, there's no getting around that. We were surprised, and so to your point, Mary Elizabeth, is all the other commissions have a regularly scheduled. Know exactly when you're going to meet is not. It's not a normal meeting time, right? And so we were surprised in that. I absolutely agree with the raise and the amount. I have no. He is working his tail off, and we are not only fixing past for a long time, but we're getting caught up and we're moving forward as a city. And so, Mayor, I commend you on that and appreciate all your hard work and not and will not support the discourse on Facebook. I just can't do it. Where we have these conversations, and then to the community, we are uniters, not dividers. We are supposed to bring people together. We are supposed to explain the process. We are supposed to help people understand. If we don't agree with the process, we have the right to say that. But we say that to the individual that reaches out to us. We say that to our constituency. We don't inflame the situation. We don't frame the conversation a certain way. We make sure that we are uniters, not dividers. And what I see in Facebook, unfortunately, is not only does it create division with the issue at hand, but then it creates division amongst people who are commenting, and that further divides our community in a time when we really should be working to bring people together. And so I don't really have a conclusion. Thank you very much. Have a good night. No, but I appreciate everyone up here. To make this governing body more cohesive, and we're going to continue to work towards that end. And so, again, I appreciate everybody, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. I appreciate you too. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tiffany and Mary Elizabeth, both for the courage it takes to stand up and chew us out. We need it sometimes. We're no different. We're human, right? None of us are superheroes yet. And so I thank you for your work, and I thank all of the volunteers that are on all our commissions and all of the extra duties that the council members up here take to sit on some of those committees and commissions. It's a lot of extra work. Some of us have more time than others, and some of us are also doing the full-time thing as well and still managing to make it happen, especially in a community that we love and care so much about. So it's good to have a little bit of an eye-opener, and I thank you for that tonight. I would like to thank the mayor for taking the time to have a conversation with me as well about the process and what broke down and what we can do to hopefully fix it going forward in the future. And I support that process, as I totally have. I'm not as young as a couple of our council members, so I didn't, well, let me rephrase that. I'm not as young as a couple of those council members. I've got them by a decade probably. The reality is yes, they may have grown up on Facebook and MySpace from middle school, but everybody older than them grew up with it as well. It came out when we were old enough to use it as well, and all that. And so I had a job interview, I don't know, almost a decade ago. And when I was interviewing for the school I was going to go work at, the owner of the school, look at your Facebook and social media. We're working with a population that, could take offense to something you might put in your personal life. Sound advice, huge advice. Moving forward from that time, I really tried to refrain what all I put out into that community. As a longtime resident of Oak Harbor and alumni of Oak Harbor High School, an easy share. And so I have to be mindful of that. And when I'm doing that, and I would ask my council members, both of them that do a lot of sharing on there, to really, really wait 24 hours before you post anything. Write it out. Take a good look at it. Make sure what you're saying is not inflammatory, but yet informatory. Instead, more informing. That wasn't the case this time around. It was not the case. I may not post, but I read. Social media groups on Whidbey Island. A lot of it. And it's good, funny entertainment, and some of it's very discouraging. And as I read many of those comments from our community members, It's the same individuals over and over and over again that make the most comments and spur them up within our community. And we, as individuals sitting up here in a position of leadership, as an honor to do, as a opportunity to guide our city into the future and guide our community, we have to be very, very careful of what we do and what we incite. And so I would ask that we please check that. That's going to hurt the city. Council members on social media. And I'm speaking to the both of you, but I'm really only trying to speak to one of you. It's not the first time. And this is my time to chat. So keep that in mind. I have a respect for every single one of the people that sit up here. I have respect for everybody out in our community that gives, and not one of us up here doesn't care and love our community. We just sometimes let our emotions get ahead of us before we react. That's part of what's growing up. And I too didn't grow up until my late 30s. So just, helpful hint. Maybe I still haven't completely, but this is what we do, and I encourage us all to do that. And again, thank you for the talk opportunities to present. I have mad respect for everybody on that salary commission as well as all of our other advisories. So,
Councilmember Wittgenstein. Councilmember Arms.
I do appreciate all of you, and I think I told you. Night. I said, please shut up, because this wasn't the way I wanted. I wasn't overly surprised that this was going to come. Maybe I've seen how much work the mayor's putting in, how much our city administrator, everybody's putting in. So it was. I'm not the Facebook generation. Sorry. I didn't grow up. I'm the oldest one here. So I wasn't there. But I was forewarned when I ran for city council. Somebody went through my Facebook page and said, you must delete all this off your page. All of it. Everything. Every little thing that was in the whip that might have used. I mean, I have a couple things on there, but it is not used. And that's what I learned, a hard lesson from somebody that said, this is going to be bad. You need not to do this. And so I've been very, very careful. Maybe dogs and cats, but that's about it. So I apologize for that. And we are working. And most of us serve on two advisory boards. I serve on two. I know Chris does. I know Eric does. I'm not sure where everybody else is, but we do serve on more than one. We take it seriously, what we do. And I apologize for that night because it should never have happened. If we have a question, like I said, it may not have been handled right, but we all need to remember that what we say and what we do does have repercussions, whether we think it does or not. No matter how upset we are by something, it's better to yell at a friend than it is to put it on Facebook, because these people do not understand our city. You can tell, I'm sorry to be rude, but you can tell from the post, they don't understand the process. They don't understand how much work goes into it, how much thought we have to go. And even if we don't agree with the citizens, we're the ones that were chosen. Sometimes you're not going to like it, but we're sorry that that happened. Should never do that. Either of you, Mary Liz, thank you for speaking up, because it's all important to us that we get it right. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember Arms. I believe all of you have spoken now, so we will move on to public hearings and meetings. We have a continuation of public hearing ordinance number 2007, amendment number 8, 2024 biennial budget. As noted, this is a continuation of the public hearing from August 13th, 2024, and here to introduce is our Deputy City Administrator, David Goldman.
David Goldman here. So since this item was tabled and continued to this meeting, is the desire of the councilor or the mayor for me to start from the beginning, or to just have the communication continue from where we left off, or provide a summary, or?
I think you can continue from where you left off. If they have any questions, they'll ask for clarification.
Okay, so I was pretty much finished. I was finished with the presentation. So there were a few items that were part of the actual amendment. One of the items being discussed, there was a question regarding the Economic Development Coordinator position. That was, since we're working on the budget right now, that was something that we had requested the council to provide clarification as to the direction that the council would like to go with forward in the future with economic development activities. As you know, there's a economic development reserve that we can utilize for economic development activities. The amendment was to fund the position for an additional 45 days because the original funding source, which was the American Rescue Plan Act funding, ARPA funding, will run out in the middle of November. So that's really the question that's in front of the council regarding what's in the ordinance for that position. The other one that's not in the ordinance but that'll help guide us going forward would be how would you like to see economic development going forward starting 25 next year? So I don't believe the council had any issues with the other couple items on the that were part of the budget amendment. So.
Yep. All right. So at this time, we will continue the public hearing. We'll reopen that, and I will call upon our city clerk to see if we've had anyone to signed up to speak on this issue.
No, Mayor, and we received no comments on this issue.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So come forward and speak on this issue. All right. Hearing no one, we will close the public comment period and move to council discussion. Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
I think we've gotten all of our questions answered on this. So I move to adopt ordinance number 20, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget, and that is version number 1.
Second.
By Councilmember Wiesner, seconded by Councilmember Wittgenstein. Is there any further discussion on this issue? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Just position, we did discuss ad nauseum at the last meeting, and we've received some clarification. Based on our history, we on multiple occasions attempted to create this position and make something happen with it, and the results that we were hoping for. So when we had this funding come available, we thought, okay, well, we can take another crack at it because it was something that some of us felt strongly about. And, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And so I think that's kind of where we are. Even though the funding runs out in November, the position was advertised as a 2-year position. As a 2-year position, I think it makes sense for us to continue to fund it till the end of the year because when we advertised the job, that was the deal. So I want to make sure that we stick to the deal. And so I'm going to support the budget amendment as presented with that position extended till the end of the year for that reason. Thank you.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah. Tuesday. I appreciate the work that staff has done on this. My point of just the attached documents and the budget adjustment. So I don't mind being a lone dissenter on this one, but just wanted to clarify and again.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all voting on the same thing. Your amendment is funded through 12/31/2024?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that's the way it was. I didn't want us to be approving something
And
that
then
was...
also, to clarify.
Go ahead, yep.
Sorry. To clarify for the audience and for people watching, the amendment that the council's voting on contains the following 5 items. 24,000 use of the Economic Development Reserve for island. $25,000 for material testing services. That was previously approved by City Council. There's a new item that one of the items is the continuation of the position to be funded through the end of the year. Another item is 31,000 of grant-funded police body-worn cameras. And the final item that's actually in the ordinance, that's part of the amendment, is $49,300, use of fire levy lid lift funds to reclassify a paid-on-call firefighter to a full-time firefighter. So only those 5 items are in the ordinance that you're voting on.
Perfect. Thank you, David. And so we have a motion as presented. It was seconded, and we've had some discussion. Any more discussion before I call for a vote? All opposed? Passes 6-1. All right. Moving on to the next public hearing and meeting item, revenue sources and property taxes for the upcoming 25 and 26 biennial budget. Deputy City Administrator David Goldman will present.
All right.
This public hearing is required by state law as part of the budget process, but requires no action by the council.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is one of the first items that's like an official budget process item for results from the end of 2023. I just got word from the state auditor that our audit will be starting the first week or 2 of October. So second, we'll show the revenue source trend through June of 2024, and we will discuss future trends, and that's the public hearing required by the RCW on the screen. So the unaudited preliminary results from 2023 are split into 2 sections due to different accounting treatment. You have governmental funds, which the main general fund is in, and then you have the enterprise funds, which all the utility funds and the marina fund are in. So section 1, governmental funds. The terminology for the main source of reserves is fund balance. So the general fund, this is the main, primary, and largest fund in the city. You can see, you can probably see better than me, so I'm just going to cheat and look at the screen. So you can see that on the top there, you have the revenue section. The revenue section is $33.6 million, preliminary results for the end of 2023. Expenditures are $21.5 million. And the reason why the revenues are so much higher than expenditures is because 2023 is the year that we got all the bond levy money in that the voters voted on for the fire station. Also, the voters voted and approved a levy lid lift, so the reserve for that is also in there. And we did really well, probably the best we've done in years on interest earnings as well, so that also helped. So of the $12 million net change increase and the total $28 million fund balance, you can see the restricted right there. That's the fire station stuff I talked about. And then you have council priority projects, that was formerly known as ARPA. You have an operating reserve that's required by code. You have a stabilization reserve that's also required by code. Then you have some additional reserves here, like the Sleeper Road proceeds revenue. That revenue was generated by the sale of a property on Sleeper Road a few years ago. $160,000 is left, and the council earmarked that money for parks-type projects. Excess stabilization reserve. A few years ago, they changed the stabilization reserve from 2 months, or 16.7%, down to 10%. Or it could have been 25 down to 10%, but whatever that was, this is the remaining money from that stabilization reserve that's sitting in the general fund, and that was not restricted by the council for any use. It could be used for anything. We have a capital facilities reserve that's been in the general fund for quite a while, and that is supposed to be used for constructing or repairing capital facilities. And then we have the non-council priority reserve projects, and that's about $61,000. The remaining amount is $9.4 million of unencumbered fund balance in the general fund. Another major fund are our streets/arterial funds. The fund balance in that fund is $4.2 million. We increased that by around $300,000 through the end of 2023. Of that amount, there's various amounts that are earmarked to projects, and the unencumbered amount of that is just under $1 million. Transportation Benefit District, that was the 0.2% sales tax that the voters voted on a few years ago. The net change there was only $67,000, and there's about $1.4 million available for, I know some of it's restricted, but all of that really is available for Transportation Benefit District projects. The restricted and unencumbered is just an accounting treatment type of thing. So, have I been moving the slides? You've been moving the slides. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So creative arts, we have about $250 million there of fund balance through the end of 2023, and the net change was minor between the beginning of 2023 and the end. LTAC. So with LTAC, our expenses exceeded our revenues by $67,000, but that was by design, by decision of the City Council to approve the list of projects and initiatives that the LTAC committee had decided on and brought to council. And we will be talking about LTAC shortly, the next round of LTAC. Senior services. So with senior services, our expenses exceeded revenues, but that was only because we had put almost $200,000 in the senior services fund last year for the roof replacement, and the project was actually done we put it in there in 2022, and the project was completed in 23. So that decrease was, at least most of that decrease was anticipated. Of the amount of funding in the senior services fund, there's only, once you look at the council priority project money that was earmarked to projects and operating reserve, there's about $1,000 available that's unencumbered. Just going forward in 2025, due to the fact that we have a brand new Parks and Recreation Department and the activities in the Senior Services Fund are an integral part of that, we're going to fold that fund into the general fund. So it'll be part of the Parks and Recreation Department, and it'll be funded out of the general fund, along with the parks maintenance. The marina will still stay separate as an enterprise fund. The last governmental fund area are all the remaining general funds, like the real estate excise tax, various project funds, the debt service funds. In general, there was a slight reduction in those funds due to the fact that in mid-2021, the state of Washington legislature allowed more flexibility on the use of REIT funds, which expired at the end of 2023. And that allowed REIT funding to be used for operating and maintenance and support services for parks and for streets and for anything that could be qualified as a capital project. You could use it for operating for a short window of time. So we're able to take advantage of that to help operating portion of streets and parks. But starting in 2024, that flexibility is gone. There might be a bill to revive it, but we're not sure how that's going to go next year. But that's one of the reasons why you see negative 339, because some of that funding was put into streets and some of that funding was put into the general fund for parks. So there's your overview and the trend for governmental funds. You can see the general fund going back 6 years has increased their fund balance. Of course, 2023 has about $10 million that's related to the fire bond and levy. Streets and arterials is kind of staying the same. TBD is about staying the same. Creative arts. So, I mean, you could generally see the trend there. It's mostly the general fund increasing due to the fire bond and levy. And I also have a chart at the bottom that shows the available balance. which is taking out all those reserves and those required stabilization funds. And you could see that pretty much every fund has increased. Senior Services hasn't, but that's going to end up being folded into the general fund. And then LTAC has decreased by design. So that's the overview of the general fund, of the governmental funds. The next item is enterprise funds, and the terminology here isn't fund balance, but it's more like net position. So, the water fund, and there's one thing funny about the accounting treatment here. If you look in the middle of the left chart, you'll see a negative for operating income. That's because due to the rules of accounting, this be called GAAP, all the expenses related to grants have to go in the operating section, but all the grant revenues go in the lower section for the non-operating revenues, because they're not really part of operating. We happen to get grants sometimes, and we happen to not get grants other times. So that's just the accounting treatment. But overall, the water funds increased by just under $1 million. And on the right, you'll see that their net position is just under $40 million. Half of that is in infrastructure and fixed assets. And the other amounts you can see there, we have amounts set aside for projects the council had approved in previous years. We have an operating reserve of 25%. We have a rate-funded system reinvestment, which is to go towards replacing items that are part of the facilities in these various funds. We also have a system development fund. That's where we collect all of our STC charges that developers pay, goes in there. And then we have whatever's left over, which is the unencumbered amount. Next slide is the sewer fund. So this is another quirk of accounting. It shows a large operating income, like a gain, but is not part of the operating expenses. I don't know why. It's an accounting treatment thing. So we have to put it in the non-operating area. And that interest, the interest on the bond is net of about $750,000 of interest earnings. So the debt on the bond and the debt on the clean water facility loans is about $230,000, but then we subtract out the $750,000, which is what we earned, to get a net of $1.5 million. So then overall, the net change is up by $1.4 million. And on the right, you can see the net position. Most of it's in fixed assets and capital assets. The unencumbered amount is $10 million. Next slide is solid waste. You can see that overall, once you take into account the non-operating revenues and such, the net change or the increase was about $350,000. And on the right, you'll see the net position. You'll see how much is in fixed assets, and then the unencumbered amount is about $2 million. Storm drain funds. This is the last utility fund on this list. The net change or increase in net position is just under $700,000. And if you look at the breakdown on the right, you can see that the unencumbered amount is $781,000 out of that amount. And the fixed assets or non-spendable is about $3 million out of that amount. And here we come to the Marina Fund. This has an operating loss of $427,000, but that's, like I said before, the projects that are grant have to go into the operating section, but all that other stuff that funds it is actually in the line that says external subsidies. So overall, when you look at the big picture, the Marina Fund gained in their net position of about $200,000. And that's broken down on the right. About 2/3 of it is fixed assets, and the unencumbered amount is about $1.265 million. So here's the same chart I showed for the governmental funds. Here's the net position trend. You can see in general it's up. If you look on the right, you can see that the net position for the total enterprise funds is up about $4 million. The available amount is down by about $700,000. You can see it fluctuates. You know, if you go back all the way to 2018, you'll see a much larger number, but that number is due to the fact that we were still building the clean water facility, and that was bond proceeds. So that's the first portion, and the next portion is the mid-year mid-year revenues and the revenue outlook for the next 2 years. So I broke all the revenues down into their major component parts. The first one are property taxes. You can see on the chart that
David, do you want to ask for questions before you move on to the next
sorry.
part? Yeah, and and the whole part about the operating expenses, that's the GASB principle and standard. That's why that's in there. So,
Sure.
but did you have a question, Councilmember Hoffmeyer? Yes.
There's across all those.
3%.
3 was okay. It looks like, looking at those, doing a little better than we thought they would. Is that somewhat accurate?
They're doing well. Part of the reason they're doing well is because we have generated just a large amount of interest earnings, and interest earnings are required to be allocated to every fund based on their current fund balance. And the 3 largest funds we have are the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. So for the last couple of years, and it looks like for 2024, depends on the economy and the Federal Reserve and all that, but we've been, like I mentioned, the sewer fund earned $750,000 just on interest earnings. If you go back a couple of years ago, that number was like, I don't even know if it was $100,000. So that does help. And of course, just the way we do our operations, just the revenues that are coming in and the way we're looking at our expenses, the efficient way that's being run by our Public Works Director, who we've had for a couple of years, it's looking pretty healthy.
Well, thank you so much. There was a period in time that I guess was before Goldman and then after. I think you're obviously really good at your job and maybe slightly lucky too, so thank you. The only other question I had was the Creative Art Fund. And it probably just boils down to where it finished up a year. But I thought that it had got about $50,000 more than that at one point. I thought it had got up to like 335 or something.
335, let me look.
And it was, I think the number shown was 270 something maybe.
Yeah, I don't see that on the trend.
It was back quite a few slides when you were on the Creative
Oh, no,
Art Fund.
I'm looking at the slide. In 2018, 150, 118, 228.
I remembered about a year and a half ago when we had that discussion, I thought it was. But it might just come down to year-end thing.
It could have been a projection, perhaps,
That could be.
because I think we did, the council approved some budget amendments this year that, what do you call that thing? There was a study being done, like a arts plan for the city, and there's a bunch of other things that were included in the budget. Maybe when we did the projection, those weren't in there, so we kind of just did a straight line calculation, but I don't remember exactly what you were
You
referring
also
to.
have this mural behind you that was like 10,000 of that 50,000 you're talking about. So
True.
I think it just got ate up by like 3 different small.
That sounds right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for that, David. On that sewer fund, right, between our reserves and our unencumbered, we got about $14 million sitting there. And
Yeah.
obviously, it was a great thing because with interest rates being high, that's what we want. We want a lot of money sitting in those reserve funds so we can crank up that interest. As we see interest demise, and I think this goes without saying because you're probably already 10 steps ahead of me and already thinking exactly what we at some point we need to take a look at that $10 million and the current debt exceeds the interest we can achieve by that money coming in, right? I think it's a time to have a discussion of rate reduction. Obviously, we don't want to, rob these reserves. We got $3 million. Let's face it, that's $10 million of money that, really can't be put to use so much. Mr. Schuler comes up to me and says, Councilmember, we're going to have a whole lot of expenses coming down the road. Well, then let's adjust the reserve balance to cover that, right? But money sitting there that I'd like to activate, right?
We do have a plan that we're going to present for 2025 and 26.
I told you were already ahead of me, right?
Well, one of the things that historically the city hasn't done other places is putting money aside for facility reserve for replacements. We do a great job for software and hardware and for vehicles. It's great. But for facilities, from what I understood from folks who have been here longer than I have, they've told me that when money's tight and they're presenting a bunch of, usually they just, if they have to do a cut, it's the core operations that remain, but stuff that, like reserve for replacement tends to, unfortunately, sometimes be like the first thing on the chopping block. So what we're doing is we're going to provide like an adequate reserve for replacement for all of our facilities, including the sewer plant, because we don't, I know it shows $10 million there, but there's not a whole lot of money set aside for a facility reserve for replacement for that particular item. And that would be one of the things we're going to present for the council to, to consider.
Yeah, which is exactly, what I'm saying, right? Let's make sure we have an appropriate reserve balance, right? But then if we've got a hunk sitting outside that reserve balance, that should be activated. I mean, the reserves are there to fall back on, right? But we shouldn't have a ton of money, unless we're in a lot of interest. We shouldn't have just a ton of money sitting there, not earmarked, not reserved, not nothing. I think it was a great testament to what's happened on over the 6 years in our general fund reserve. That balance is almost doubled, and that's unencumbered on top of the fact that we have the required state reserves, and we set aside special reserves, a little over $2 million on top of the state. Let's just keep doing that, right? But at the same time, I don't want to see that money sitting there and not activated and not have a plan that goes to benefit the citizens of Oak Harbor, right? Having it just sitting there doesn't do them any good. Thank you.
Yeah, and so just for, full transparency, one of the things that this leadership team is doing is looking at the infrastructure replacement cost towards, because we don't have anything in place right now. So, and we have a lot of needs, and so we're trying to crisis management those needs as well as put things into reserve so that we have a bright future and we're handing something off that's much better than the way we inherited it. So, did you have something, Mayor Pro Tem? Nope. Okay. Anything else? All right, proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. So the next section is, let me go ahead. So the next section are the revenue trends through the middle of the year, and also the discussion on the future trends. And this is the part that's required by that RCW that I mentioned. So the first item here are property taxes. So you can see the chart on the top is 6 months, is half the year. Because I created this programmable chart where you can put in the period or the month 5 or 7 or whatever. So since we had pretty much closed the month for the month of June, I'm able to go to period 6. The bottom area below that dark line where it says estimated and then 25 and 26, those are full year numbers. Because we're just estimating what we think 24 is going to look like at the close of the year. And we're also showing you what we're putting in our budget for 25 and 26. We might tweak it a little bit in the next few weeks, but that's pretty much what we're looking at for these. So for property taxes, it's really, they grow by 1% a year. If we have new construction, then that gets added on top, but that's not something that grows by a lot unless the voters decide to tax themselves like they did 2 years ago for the provision of better fire service and a new fire station. So that's why you see that big jump in 2023. Sales tax trends. So sales taxes are dependent on the economy. Also, with the inflation that we had starting in 2020, which it looks like it's leveling off, if prices go up, we collect more sales taxes. Of course, the cost of all of our projects go up too and everything we buy, but we collect more sales taxes. So it did grow pretty fast between 2000 and 2021, and also grew decently between 2021 and 2022, but it is definitely leveling off. We're not seeing it grow by that amount any longer. So we're projecting a very slight increase to 25 and 26. Utility taxes and franchise fees. These are projected to increase in 25 due to the action that the council took regarding the utility taxes to make up for the adjustment downward in the sewer utility rate, and also to increase utility taxes to help pay for the indigent defense, which was pretty much an unfunded mandate. The increase in indigent, we have always done it, but there was an increase in indigent defense, which apparently, I read something in the Association of Washington Cities, and it seems to be a statewide thing. It's not just an Oak Harbor thing. So there might be more news to come on that too, some legislation coming up. But anyhow, so that increased, and also we're looking to add another police shift next year as well. So that's the primary reason for this increase. Went wrong way. Utility tax revenues, those are down because the council decided, based on the refunding of the debt on the clean water facility, to decrease the sewer rate, because we didn't need as much sewer revenues to pay for the lower debt service. So these are looking to go down, but that was by design, based on a conscious decision to do that, to actually save the taxpayers money over the long run. So development and building permits. So yeah, building permit activity has increased dramatically. I mean, we have gotten, so far this year, or at least through June, we receive development fees and building permits and all the things that are related to development. You can see that at the same period in the previous years, like the same period last year was 207,000. We're more than double. And we're higher than any of the years that I have on this list going back to 2018. So based on that, it's hard to do straight line with development because it depends on when they come in. So I didn't quite do straight line. I worked with our development services director and tried to come up with something that matched what he was seeing. We're looking at just over $800,000 for '24. And it's hard to predict going forward, but, and I like to be conservative. I don't like to overestimate revenues, but you can see that I put 685 and 675 there, assuming that all these projects that we're talking about and the things that the Development Service Director had informed me about come to fruition. So that's what we're looking at. Business license revenue trend, you can see it is higher in 2024. That was due to the new structure that the council voted on. Anything above the base, the baseline is basically 2023 revenues. So adding an inflation factor, anything above that base and inflation factor goes to the Economic Development Reserve. So for 2024, so far this year, we've received $91,000 through June, which is greater than all the other years. And we're projecting, if that continues, we'll be receiving $190,000 by the end of this year. So that means for the Economic Development Reserve, maybe 120, 125. And we're looking to have that be even greater going forward, because due to the state delaying the implementation of us implementing on the business license services that they provided, they delayed it by 1 month, but that 1 month of January is the month where all businesses are used to renewing their licenses. Going forward, it'll be at the anniversary date whenever the business got their license and started. So it's going to be spread out throughout the year, but the existing businesses are all used to renewing their business license in that month, and because they delayed the new structure in that month, we ended up missing out on a bunch of revenue. But next year, it'll get back to normal, and we should see a greater amount of money generated for that Economic Development Reserve.
So these business license revenues, do we have a way to drill down and see how that translates into number of business licenses that we're actually issuing, how that translates?
Yeah, we can look at it in aggregate.
Just so we could look at that as a comparable too?
We can look at it in aggregate and by category, but we can't look at it by actual business.
Okay, so maybe like if we could just add that demographic to the next, when we do this, or would like to see that too.
Item here are Parks and Recreation revenues. Those are on an upward trend, and they're projected to continue to increase as our Parks and Rec Director continues to open up new programs and new activities for the residents to team, the whole group that's working on these new initiatives. Our real estate excise tax is down for this year. It was pretty low last year. Sorry, 2023 was pretty low, and it looks like it's not going to be a whole lot higher for 2024. That's money that we receive based on real estate transactions. So whenever there's a sale of a piece of real estate, the state gets a pretty big chunk of the real estate excise tax, and the cities and the counties get a smaller chunk. But based on how the economy is and how interest rates had increased, interest rates increasing translate into mortgage rates increasing. And based on that, there tended to be a slowdown in real estate activity nationwide, but it looks like that might be breaking. And we're hopeful that interest rates will continue to decrease, which means mortgage rates will decrease and activity will start getting back to what we're used to. So, but then again, it's hard to predict the economy. This item is the motor vehicle fuel tax and Capron tax. So these funds pay for streets and roadway repair. And the motor vehicle fuel tax peaked about 20 years ago. Because it's an excise tax, it's not based on how much a gallon of gasoline costs. It's based on how many gallons are purchased. And over the years, cars have become more efficient. There's electric cars out there that don't even use gas. And because of that, just motor vehicle fuel has just, the amount of motor vehicle fuel purchase has been on a downtrend. But looking at the cost of actually doing street and roadway repairs, that cost has not been on a downtrend. So there's a bit of a disconnect, and this is everywhere within Washington State. And Capron, by the way, is a special tax that San Juan County and Island County gets. Only we get that because we don't have an interstate in our counties, apparently, and that's the reason behind that law. So it's extra funds that we get to help fund roadway and streets, and that also has been on a downward trend. So we're hoping that the legislature one day gets together and figures out a way to fix this so cities have an adequate way of funding their roadway and street repairs. And then here's your TBD sales tax. This is a sales tax, which is not an excise tax. And this, since it was implemented in 2019 by the voters and we started collecting money in 2020, we've received about $1.15 million a year. We're looking to get that amount for the next few years. We don't really see sales taxes of any kind growing unless something changes. And then here's your lodging tax. This is the funding that goes into the LTAC fund. Basically, this is a 4% amount. 2% is on top of the sales tax, and then 2% of the state has a 6.5% base sales tax. 2% of that is credited back to cities and counties for the lodging tax for people who stay at applicable lodging, hotels and motels and stuff, and Airbnbs. So that's where that money comes from. And the trend for that is pretty decent. 2023 will be a high. 2024, we're estimating it a little bit lower than that high. But overall, we're just kind of keeping it conservative and around the amount that we're looking at for 23 and 24 going forward. And here's our interest earnings. You can see these very large peaks in 2023 and 24. That's due to our investment activity. And also due to, obviously, interest rates being a little bit better than they were in the past. That's going to continue through 24, and I have that decreasing by 20% in 25 and decreasing by another 20% in 26. And we'll revisit that if we need to decrease that further, or maybe we decreased it too much. We'll continue to keep our eye on that. And those funds get spread out throughout all the funds. And couple last slides. This is the total revenues of everything you just saw. This includes the volatile revenues like transfers and interest earnings and insurance recovery, grants, all that stuff. You can see that it kind of goes up and down. So it doesn't really give a good sense of a trend. But the next slide are the core revenues. This takes out those volatile components. We do include the levy lid lift, because once it passed, it's going to stay that level and go up 1%. Actually, I did include interest earnings in the core too. Since we get interest earnings every year, it's just, it's just not like grants and stuff like that. So you can see this chart. It's not as noisy as the other chart, but pretty much it's an upward trend. And, we just see it growing at reasonable rate, not really high, but a couple percentage points in 25 and 26 overall. So our outlook is our city financials are stable. We'll keep an eye on sales tax and development real estate related trends. And we're looking for the state to adopt a permanent fix for transportation funding. And that's all I have on the revenues.
All right, great. Thanks, David. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. I will confirm with Julie that we received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
All right, did we have anyone sign up to speak on this issue?
No, Mayor, we have not.
All right, is there anyone here present with us this evening that would like to come forward and speak on this issue? Yes, sir. Come forward, state your name and address, and proceed.
Hi, my name's Scott Thompson, 2900 Scenic Heights Point. I came here tonight to speak on another issue, but I would like to add to this report. There's three issues that have concerned me over the last 5 years of investing in the community. One is the property tax. My property tax values have remained stagnant through the last 5 years, but my assessments have increased by about 200%. So I think that there's a little bit of a misnomer on our mill rate being frozen, but our property value is tied to an assessment, which is now changed to an appraisal. So even though we're fixed in our mill rate to appraisal prices, and it went up, some of my assessments have gone up 100%. What that means is I'm paying twice as much property tax than I was before. So it's really kind of a false mill rate increase. And you'll notice the bump that you saw there is part of that. The other one, being a home developer here, we're also seeing and experiencing the excise tax that has been increased by the legislature. That's also increased by about 100% or double what it was when I first moved here. And then the development fees have also doubled. So I'm just letting you guys know that it becomes a burden to the development community when you're starting to see these taxes. And I think between sales tax, of which I'm paying in Oak Harbor, which I think I'm the only developer paying sales tax in Oak Harbor, all the other ones are taking landing outside the city. The burden becomes greater as that takes place, and trying to pass that cost on to the home buyer becomes more and more difficult. And I just want to make it very clear to all of you that, you know, we've seen communities do this before, and you can get yourself into a situation where you brown out development. Basically, people turn off the lights and they stop developing because they can no longer maintain their margin for development. And that's a little bit of a concern for me, because if you take the last 5 years, pretty much those three different pockets of money have doubled. So you're looking at a 20% growth behind that. So you're looking at 20% compounded a year in inflation over the last 5 years. If that trend continues, where does this stop? Because we're at the point now where it's very difficult to sell a home for basically more than $600,000. And when you're looking at your development fees, your sales tax on labor, you're looking at $70,000 per permit, all inclusive, including your excise taxes. That's house before you can even start building it. $70,000 is a lot of money. And the way it works here, unlike other areas, which we come from, we're one of the largest developers in Las Vegas, concerned about how those fees fit into the economy in other states. Because if you don't keep your development thriving, that's part of your growth. And the key to the community is growth. It's not inflation. But all three of those fees that I just responded to, those are all inflation-based fees. They have tax or an inflationary trend onto something because something else costs more. But when we all hit the $600,000 mark, which is basically the majority of people can't afford a home over $600,000, cash, and that can also include your existing real estate. So I just wanted to point that out. And we're in 4 states. We operate the same way in all 4 states. This has been a little bit more difficult, as you guys know. You know, we've been in an appeal process on our larger project, which is now. I am a little concerned about what's going on in the state. And it doesn't really affect anything on Oak Harbor because most of those increases have really been forced on us by the state legislature. I think there's only one that wasn't, which was development fees. Fee discussion yet, but I am going to come and propose my feelings toward that development fee increase. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public at this time? All right, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and call upon council for their questions and comments. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Transportation piece on the revenue, I believe, and anything we can do in the city beyond the 3 charging stations we have, if investing in charging stations in the future is going to help bring some of that revenue back up that we're losing from the gas sales tax. I look at it on my brakes, right? All 3 of those stations are being used almost all day, every day.
The city does have a utility tax on electricity of 6%. So, you know, we would get 6% of whoever charges. And
If we had more charging stations, there'd be more,
I mean,
more of that 6% coming in.
presumably, yeah, there would be more. But I'm trying to figure out in my head, like, how much more would it be? Would it be significant? Would it be enough to really fund transportation? Or would we really need the state to step up and figure out a way to fix it for all the cities, you know?
Yeah, the state's going to have to step up and fix their end of that. But I'm not one to just sit around and wait for the state to do what they need to do. If there's actions that we can potentially look at for the future that would be able to help potentially do or offset even just a little bit, right? Like the need for these stations are going to go up.
We are looking at grants for that. I know that Wendy and Sandra over in Public Works had looked into some grants. Wendy will be providing an update tonight, but not on that, but on ARPA. But, you know, we can definitely get you whatever information we have regarding electrification and grants that we've applied for.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
I think that we could also probably add this as a workshop. Fit analysis of that too. So not saying no to it, just saying we want to weigh the costs and what we're going to potentially yield as a return on that, because I don't know that it would really map out. That's all I'm saying. So any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Marshall. I'm sorry.
David, help me understand the 1% property tax, if you would. Just the one is just the 1% a $4 million increase from 2023 to 2024?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Let's go back. So the increase from 2023 to 2024, it includes the 1%, but it also includes an estimate for new construction. If you go back in time and look at every year, you'll see that we've grown, the property taxes have grown by about 1.5%. So I use 1.5% to grow from 23 to 24. So it is that 1%, but the other 0.5% is new construction.
So in your estimation, what is the actual 1%? If we were to increase the property tax by 1% in 2025, how much actual revenue will that bring in?
$75,000 approximately, give or take a couple thousand.
So that's not going to make or break our budget.
I've done the math.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, 1/3 of that has to go to fire because of the levied lid lift. So it doesn't all go to whatever we want.
Okay.
Because the voters voted for a specific reason, any kind of growth that occurs, we do restrict it for,
So just to be clear, I'm not a fan of the idea of just an automatic 1% increase because we can do the 1% increase. We've heard that, I believe that one of the reasons why sales tax is going down is people have less discretionary money to spend. They're struggling. In having conversations with people, we're looking at the possibility in the future of trying to fund a rec center, right? And so people are already saying, the property taxes are high, and we've just approved the fire station. Pool Parks and Rec, or Northwood Pool Park and Rec, is looking to redo their maintenance and operations levy. And so if it's not something that is detrimental to our budget, I would really like to explore the option of not increasing it this year. Yeah, I see the smile.
No, so, the council had approved bargaining agreements with all of our unions.
Yeah.
And the way it works is, there are steps between, like when employees hired, they could come at a certain step. When we go to the next step, they get a % increase. And then there's a cost of living increase on top of that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that our personnel services inflation is greater than 1%. And when sales taxes were increasing, the way they were in 2020, 2021, we were, it was doing a decent job in covering those increases. Also, the increases were a little slower back during 2020 and 2021. But with sales taxes kind of flatlining and, with our utility taxes are going up, but for specific reasons, that's not really going up. It's just going for specific reasons the council decided. And with our property taxes growing at the 1.5%, and without having any other major source of revenues, I guess what I'm getting at is we kind of need that money just to continue operations. And it's not even really enough to fund some of these increases as well. So, well, we have it, the interest earnings were really good, and that really helped us during the last couple of years.
Right. It sounded like it was significantly higher than what that 75,000 would be, and we have an unencumbered fund balance in the general fund currently, right? That is significantly higher than $75,000. Okay. All right. I think. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Anybody else for the good of the order on this issue before we move on? Nothing else. All right. So we have one item left on the agenda. I'm going to leave this up to council that's up here. Would you like to take a quick 5-minute break, or you want to power through and be done? I don't think so. Okay, perfect. We'll power through. Last item is the 2025 lodging tax grant funding level referral to council. And here to introduce this is our grants administrator, Wendy Horn. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Wendy Horn, the grants administrator, but I'm also acting as the LTAC liaison tonight. So we are going to be chatting about the funding levels for 2025 grant funding tonight. Just as a little bit of background, per Washington State Regulations 6728/1817, a city or county with a population of 5,000 or more that collects lodging tax must also establish a Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, or an LTAC, to review applications and make funding recommendations for the use of those funds. So, the City of Oak Harbor has an LTAC, and our LTAC consists of 3 individuals who represent organizations that can receive those funds. It also has 3 individuals who represent the businesses that collect the tax, and then 1 city council member acts as a chair, and the finance director and/or his or her designee are an ex officio member. And then per our municipal code 2.66, any proposal to assign lodging tax funding must be submitted to the LTAC for review and comment for at least 45 days before any final action is taken on behalf of the legislative body, which is you. So, just a reminder, lodging tax revenues can be used for tourism marketing and operations of special events and festivals designed to attract tourists, operations and capital expenditures of tourism-related facilities operated by municipality, also operations of tourism-related facilities owned and operated by nonprofits. So for 2025, we are proposing the following timeline. Today, we'll kick off the 45-day window as you discuss funding levels for 2025. Following your decision on the amount of funding to provide, we will get the LTAC committee together to discuss both the grading criteria and the application process. Once that's done, we will open the application process to the public. We'll close that after a period of time. Usually it's a 2-week window. It can be longer if the if the LTAC decides. Then the LTAC meets again. They review the applications. They will listen to presentations if they want to this year. They will meet again to determine the grant award amounts to make recommendation to the City Council. And then the City Council will consider those amounts and make their decision. Ideally, this all happens by mid-October, but the timeline is flexible. So I wanted to give you just kind of a background. Here's a 10-year look back of the fund balance, revenues and expenses and the fund. So the green bar is the revenue that has come in over the last 10 years each year. The blue bar is the expenses that you all approved. And then the purple bar is the fund balance overall from year to year. And as you can see, all three of those are relatively healthy and similar year to year. So, current status quo, even though I know David presented a different number, as of the end of period 6, 2024, our current fund balance in the LTAC fund is $706,656 $4.04. We anticipate an additional $214,000, give or take, in revenue towards for the rest of the year. We have commitments of $207,685.96 for grants that were awarded in 2024. And once those are all claimed, that will leave a fund balance of approximately $713,342.32. So, the proposed funding level for this year was a conversation between the chair and the finance director. Just so you know, we have multi-year grants to the tune of $161,160 annually. This is the last year of those multi-year grants. 2025 will be, I should say. We also have an agreement with the Whidbey and Camano Island Tourism Group for $50,000 a year. So those are committed funds. The recommendation this year is to award $238,840 in single-year awards, and that would be a total approved expenditures for 2025 of $450,000. So what is that going to do to the fund balance? We are projecting in 2025 that we are going to make another $358,700 in revenue. Again, we have our known commitments. And if we were not to offer any additional awards, that would leave the fund balance at approximately $860,882.32. With the additional one-time of $238,840, that would drop the ending fund balance in 2025 down to $622,000. So with that, I'm happy to bring back any of those slides for you. I know I went by really fast, but I'm going to turn it over to our chairman, Stuckey, for discussion and conversation.
I guess I don't have a whole lot to add. My thought process has always been, when I took over it, the balance I felt was a little on the higher end. It was 842 or so that we had. And I asked why the balance had gotten so high, and I'd asked the previous chair, which was Joel Servadius. There was some thought about an amphitheater, or something like that, but there wasn't like a firm, this is what we're kind of holding on that funding for. If we do have some grandiose idea for it, I'm okay with that, but we really don't. And so in my mind, it's meant to be given out. And keep in mind, given out means to communities. It means to things like hydros. It means to things like the music festival, but it also means things like city. Remember, parks can apply for it, things like that. So my thought has always been slowly spend it down a little bit. We need to keep some in there. Kind of in my thought when it comes to that. So when you see, well, why are we spending more money than we're taking in? At least for me, that's kind of been my opinion of let's keep spending that down. I'm not saying spend it down to zero. You can see there's still going to be over $600,000 if we award every penny. The other note is the other hat I wear is I got on the Island County Tourism Board. I was voluntold on that one, which is okay. So that 50,000, right now, if those of you remember, we voted on that 50,000 to go from 20,000. That's actually not taken effect because the updated documents have actually not been signed. And the reason being for that is we're working on becoming a 501c6. And when we do that, and we're hoping to have those documents by the beginning of the year, we'll put that together in an updated agreement and an upgraded interlocal. And then hopefully you can get all the municipalities in the county to sign at that time. So even though we had voted on spending that money 6 months ago, we haven't done that. That's not enacted yet. So that will be coming back before us. And that's kind of all the thoughts I have. But if any questions, happy to help out. Wendy, happy to help out, and we'll go from there.
Wendy, can we just go back one slide? And maybe it's because I looked at all of David's numbers and we've been working on budget for like weeks now. And what does the 238,840 number represent?
That represents the recommendation by Councilmember Stuckey for the one-time annual grants on top of the other commitments that we've already given. So there'd be $238,000 available for organizations to apply for.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anybody? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. So Wendy, it looks like we have $207,685 in unspent awards as of July 31st. What is the timeline? Is there an expiration date on that? So if in the case of Whidbey Island or Whidbey Commando Island Tourism doesn't submit that paperwork until the first of next year, does that $50,000 for 2024 then expire?
Sure. So everybody has until January 31st, 2025 to turn in all of their receipts and their Exhibit C and B in order to be reimbursed.
Okay.
And that number is high because a number of the events haven't happened, like the music festival. Hydros just happened, so we'll get their reimbursements coming up. The other piece of it is a few of the awards are billed to us on a monthly basis. So the chamber and the museum both got awarded for operations, so they send us monthly bills. So it just, over the course of the next 6 months, we'll definitely spend that all down.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to apologize. I should have called for public comment first, and I didn't do that. That was my bad. So, Julie, I'm going to confirm with you that we received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
Great, thank you. And is there anyone here present with us this evening that would like to make public comment on this issue? All right, hearing none, then we will now call upon council for their questions and comments, and that will go to Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with, your thoughts here, Brian, that we need to activate this money, right? That sitting here does absolutely no good to promote tourism in our community, and we owe it to the collectors of this money, right? The hotel owners who collect this money and fund this to do what we can to fill their rooms. With that said, going back to where the fund was being built up, there was, like you say, an amphitheater. I think at one time there was even the clock tower was the discussion of this. And just to remind everybody, our city parking area has walls built around it that are designed for a cap to go over the top of it to build some sort of a promenade there on that corner over the city parking lot. And the only reason I always bring that up is I don't want us to forget that those walls were built and designed and thickened for that eventual thought. So, in my mind, if we were to think about building a fund, it looks like we'd have about $150,000 a year to build a fund. And the reality is, it'd take us, over 10 years to get $1 million built up to use this fund to do something major. And that just seems kind of odd, right, to waylay promotions and events in the community for 10 years in order to, build up $1 million to maybe eventually do something with it. So unless somebody comes up with a really grand idea of how we can leverage that money some other way, I certainly agree with you, Brian. Get it into the hands of the folks in the community that can bring the tourists here and do the job it's intended to do. Thanks for what you do. I know this time of the year there's a lot of time you put into this and effort. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Anybody else for the good of the order on this issue? Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I will just say one thing as a side note related with the Island County Tourism Board. They will be giving a presentation soon. I know that we're talking about having one here because we need to give that presentation. I was actually one of the naysayers for that $50,000. Being on that board, still hesitant, but I think it's getting better. But when they go over that data, it'll be great to see because Island County tourism's up, and they have like the dollar amount. And I'll admit, Oak Harbor's down a little bit, but we'll see what we can do about that. So more to come.
Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion. No, wait, are we not?
You got to vote on this motion. I move to refer use of civic improvement lodging tax funds of $450,000 in 2025 to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for grant application review and recommendation back.
All right, so we have a motion as presented by Councilmember Marshall, seconded by Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Was that a yes? Okay, so it passes unanimously.
Now move to adjourn.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand.